pal Don Lemon has resurfaced or is about to resurface. And I realize that the magnanimous move is to say, good for Don. He got canceled off of CNN and now he's reinventing himself on Twitter. Well, that's not what I say. I think he's disgusting. He hates America. He hates Republicans. And I'm not looking forward to his voice reemerging other than to mock it, which I 100% plan to do.
Want to hear a funny opinion? That Don Lemon doesn't do opinion.
I don't do opinion. And I know that the difference for me is I do point of view. So I'm giving my point of view as an American, as a black man.
Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld have simply reduced Don Lemon to a smoldering punchline, destroying his ego with ruthless wit and no mercy. From his demise on CNN to his meltdown on his morning show, they hilariously exposed his smug grin and foolish opinions. You should reconsider if you believe Don had already reached his lowest point. This takedown eliminates all illusions by going deeper. Expect a roast so brutal that even Lemon's teleprompter would recoil.
I also represent CNN, and so I must tell the truth. And if I don't, if my facts are wrong, then I have to clarify it, and I have to come on television, and I have to apologize, and I say, I got that wrong.
That has never happened. So he's telling you what he bases his opinions off of. At the same time, he tells you he doesn't give opinions, just point of view.
That's the only silver lining in this one for me. He's going out on X, all right? It's like, oh, great, Tucker did it on X, and Tucker and I got fired on the same day, so I'll go out on X. And Don Lemon comes out with a post on X saying, it starts as follows. I've heard you, and today I'm back, bigger, bolder, freer. I've heard you, like the masses are clamoring. Where's Don? What we need?
They've been crying out for Don.
Come back into my life, Don.
Take some off of Bill O'Reilly.
Right. So here's honestly, and like there are people welcoming Don back to the national conversation, and for those people and others, I just have a little reminder for you of who Don Lemon is and why we can't.
It was not even necessary for Greg Gutfeld to warm up. The moment the name Don Lemon was mentioned, he appeared to have entered a comedy buffet without any calorie restrictions. Roasting Lemon was more of a performance art piece than a political one for Gutfeld. In a clown factory, it was like igniting fireworks.
Shown us who he is. Believe him. This is not someone who I'm rooting for. I'm not saying he should never be allowed to speak again. I'm just saying I don't have to personally cheerlead it or think it's a good thing or recognize that this is like some sort of important voice in the conversation, and yay for Elon for making it possible for him to come back. He's a prick and he f***ing hates.
If you like this video, please hit the bell symbol and subscribe to the channel. He began with astonishment at Don Lemon's unparalleled ability to be extremely incorrect. Lemon could point south, even if he were put into a room full of compasses, according to Gutfeld. He likened the experience of seeing Don Lemon explain current affairs to witnessing someone teach algebra with confidence and a fancy vocabulary. Regardless of the gravity of the subject, Lemon managed to make every news segment feel like a high school play tryout. According to Entertainment Weekly, Don Lemon managed to make every news segment feel like a high school theatrical audition.
And neither has Lemon's so-called facts, otherwise known as unhinged babble puke.
You are the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States of America, the greatest country on earth. Act like it. The president of the United States is a fraud and a con man. The president of the United States is racist. A lot of us already knew that. If you voted for Trump, you voted for the person who the Klan supported. You voted for the person who Nazi.
Biden just did a presser on the crime wave, buddy. If you brought this guy within a mile of a lie detector, it would explode. I haven't seen that many bad opinions since the initial reviews of this hit show. Whatever happened to those people? So why is he so defensive about expressing opinions? It seems like a central part of his identity, his emotional assessment of stuff. Why can't he say, "Hi, I'm Don Lemon, and I have more opinions than a meth-addled cab driver"? Instead, we have to laugh at his nightly denials. After me, he's the funniest late-night show host.
Greg entered the CNN phase of Lemon's career with the vigor of a lion at a zoo. With the urgency of someone requesting a latte remake from a waiter, Don somehow made breaking news sound like a Broadway monologue. He said, "Lemon did more than simply convey the news," Gutfeld said. He read it emotionally, as if he were a method actor reading a shopping list.
Election deniers to people who don't believe in facts, we don't have a shared reality, and now it's taken center stage to people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, an election denier, a conspiracy theorist, a QAnon sort of influencer or supporter presiding over the House of Representatives. It's a sad day for America when that happens, and it's a sad time for us when we have to deal with it.
Okay, so here's the context you need to understand what just happened there. Caitlin Collins is interviewing James Comer, head of oversight now, who's doing all the investigations. And in that interview, he mentioned something about the New York Post.
Additionally, Greg pointed out Lemon's renowned fixation on being on the right side of history, which varies based on the direction of the Twitter airflow. He claimed that if history were a treadmill, Lemon would be jogging in place while giving lectures too. Others on the proper running speed. That one almost gave Gutfeld a broken rib on morning program.
Man's dimmest rube is back on the tube. Yeah, Don Lemon gets an HR warning, then returns to help CNN have a bad morning. Lady-hating numbskull Don Lemon is set to return to his low-rated morning show tomorrow after vacationing in Miami. That's him on the left. I'm over here. But he proves criminals always return to the scene of the...
Don Lemon's transfer to the morning program was criticized by Greg Gutfeld, who likened it to employing a mind to narrate an audiobook uncomfortable and pointless. Saying that Don's strength was relatability at sunrise, he called him a haughty alarm clock wearing a jacket. Gutfeld's attacks on Lemon's on-air outbursts intensified the roast, claiming that he could transform traffic into a constitutional crisis and a weather update into a sermon. Even good news seemed to come with a fine and a scolding, Greg laughed. Additionally, he mocked Lemon's smug grin, turtlenecks, and glasses, claiming that his clothing was selected by deceitful mirrors. Gutfeld likened Lemon's lack of focus on facts to a gingerbread house after a downpour. He joked that viewers would still be chilled even if Don called the sun hot. Greg finally took a harsh stance on Lemon's departure from CNN, comparing it to a long overdue software uninstall rather than a resignation, saying that when he left, things ran more smoothly. CNN, he claimed, put survival ahead of obstinacy.
There's a QAnon sort of influencer or supporter presiding over the House of Representatives. It's a sad day for America when that happens, and it's a sad time for us when we have to deal with it.
Okay, so here's the context you need to understand what just happened there. Caitlin Collins is interviewing James Comer, head of oversight now, who's doing all the investigations. And in that interview, he mentioned something about the New York Post, cited something, referred to the New York Post. And then they wrapped. And when they tossed back to the studio, Don Lemon was chastising her in that clip for not challenging him.
Megyn Kelly, meanwhile, performed a surgically precise, frigid, and methodical roast of Don Lemon on a different platform. She slashed instead of shouted. Megyn criticized Lemon's tone of moral superiority and pointed out the constant sense of pride that followed him. She said he treats eye-rolling as a discussion tactic and conflates disdain with conviction. She made fun of his performative neutrality, claiming that his observations sounded like they were penned by an irate freshman with hashtags. She said that Lemon, while hosting a panel, behaved like a biased referee by tripping players and then awarding penalties. She also criticized his propensity to make every discussion into a sermon about why everyone else must change, saying Lemon thought that retweeting him, agreeing marked the beginning and end of growth. Don would talk for 45 minutes and charge you for interrupting him. Megyn joked if he were a therapist. She finally captured his unease with disagreement by likening him to a GPS that changes its course when prompted, but his path always ends in a smug, dimly lit cold dash to dash sack.
Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. when a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
Prime for what?
When
I
they're
think
prime
we need to qualify. Are you talking about prime for like childbearing, or are you talking about prime for being president?
What the facts are. Google it.
Google it! Wow, he's the only guy alive who can make Andrew Dice Clay seem like an enlightened feminist. As part of
Don Lemon's disastrous morning show was also targeted by Megyn Kelly, who joked that the real comedy was picturing the boardroom when someone proposed him as a daybreak personality, and everyone approved. It was like waking up to a sermon from a disgruntled substitute teacher. She said of Don Lemon, he viewed every criticism as a crisis and every disagreement as an attack on democracy. She said, tearing into his overreactions, she also wasn't surprised by his CNN exit, likening his dramatic reaction to a reality TV star who didn't realize the cameras had stopped rolling expecting a national outcry, but instead receiving unpleasant headlines. Kelly and Gutfeld both delivered the same blow. Despite their differing styles, Don Lemon equated purpose with performance. Instead of providing genuine insight, Kelly revealed how he weaponized identity and emotion, while Gutfeld made fun of his self-seriousness and frequent mistakes. Gutfeld concluded by joking that Lemon might still be haunting CNN, akin to a ghost anchor rambling through a scrolling teleprompter while no one else is around.
Better. According to the New York Post in an exclusive report, Don Lemon screamed at his co-host, Caitlin Collins. According to two sources with knowledge, says the New York Post, Lemon approached Collins following the show's Thursday, December 8th broadcast and unloaded on her in front of staffers as he accused her of interrupting him on air. Quote, Don screamed at Caitlin, who was visibly upset, and ran out of the studio.
Megyn Kelly concluded by stating that Don Lemon's legacy was what happens when credibility is overshadowed by ego, not just controversy or bad takes. She stated he could have been terrific, but chose to be noisy instead. He might receive a signed photo and wine pairing at his next engagement, she joked, or a membership app that automatically unsubscribes after 2 minutes. Don will have complete authority at last once he becomes independent, and no one will be held accountable. Gutfeld made a comeback for a reprise, likening Lemon's reasoning to a GPS that got caught in a roundabout. Don could describe the sky's problems for 10 minutes. He remarked, without noticing that the talk had progressed. It was like improv without a topic or identity, Greg remarked, watching him change course in the middle of a dispute by referring to his segments as essays graded by understanding professors. He made fun of Lemon's tendency to use flowery language to say very little. Gutfeld, in the end, mocked Lemon's habit of making every story about himself by imagining him reporting on a natural disaster while focusing on how the wind personally offended him. Greg said that in addition to the weather, Don's self-importance could cause a tidal wave in his universe.
To also accept that he's kind of an inspiration for an idiot. Like, if he's made it this far as an idiot. That's not true. Gay, black, liberal. He was bulletproof. Yep. He was bulletproof. Well, that's how he got so far. He still is. Yeah, he still is. He's still got a job. If you said something like that, I would fire you in a second. But I can't, because you don't work for me.
In her final retort, Megyn Kelly criticized Don Lemon for his persistent victimization and treatment of criticism as oppression. In addition to playing the race card, she joked that he would frame it, laminate it, and drink cappuccino while pointing the finger at society. They pictured Lemon planning a 10-part documentary series titled The Silencing of Don, which would air at 3 a.m., a platform funded by Ego and Irony, featuring self-cast reenactments and candlelit monologues. They ended on a note of wonder. Rather than merely derision, Kelly found it incomprehensible that someone with so much potential would choose to become a parody, while Gutfeld marveled at Lemon's uncheckable self-importance despite consistently falling short. But they both agreed that Don Lemon is still out there just regrouping, perhaps practicing his next misunderstood monologue in front of a mirror. The roast wasn't a send-off, it was merely an intermission.
Man's dimmest rube is back on the tube. Yeah, Don Lemon gets an HR warning, then returns to help CNN have a bad morning. Lady-hating numbskull Don Lemon is said to return to his low-rated morning show tomorrow after vacationing in Miami. That's him on the left. I'm over here. But he proves criminals always return to the scene of the...
Don Lemon will reclaim his fame as long as there are cameras, egos, and wifey, and Gutfeld and Kelly will be prepared when he does. While Kelly claimed he didn't present news, but rather soliloquies, Gutfeld referred to his approach as emotional camouflage for empty arguments, with each program serving as a live audition for a role only Don believed existed. She sneered at his notion of balance as hiring guests who were both intelligent enough to agree and uninteresting enough not to overshadow him. Then came the final blow. Both agreed that Lemon's biggest weakness wasn't arrogance, bias, or ignorance. It was believing his own hype. In a world of spin, he built a house of mirrors and got lost inside.